People are still eating.
But I don't mind this. I love this. This feels safe. I love the food. I love it.
Hello. Ooh, ooh, ooh.
Me?
Yeah, you seem like you've been doing it for a long time.
More than 20 years.
Wait, have you actually? Wait, how did you start?
I started in academia.
You learn?
Yeah.
Wow. I would never guess.
It's a good teacher.
Okay, that's good. Maybe you can see. Hi, I think where you want to say?
It doesn't matter wherever you go.
Okay.
I'm gonna. Okay. Hello, guys.
I can just say. I can say. I can sing.
Yeah, I can
I
sing.
can rap.
I'll rap. I like a dance.
Let's do it. Are you already live or no? No.
Yeah, yeah,
Right now?
Yeah.
We're live?
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
But they're seeing that. They're not seeing it.
Oh, is there not music?
Good. So we will be starting. We believe that more people will come after lunch. That was a little bit delayed. But good afternoon, panelists, good afternoon, participants. And I want to start by thanking the Republic of Korea for hosting this very important international event, the Summit for Democracy, and giving space to civil society and youth during the second day of the official Summit for Democracy. I am very honored to welcome you to this intergenerational dialogue, which is an integral part of the Global Democracy Coalition efforts during this day of cohort civil society and youth at the third Summit for Democracy. Today, we convene to delve into the critical intersection of youth, technology, and democracy, an area of immense significance in our increasingly digital world. Intergenerational dialogue, as we understand it, is not merely a conversation. It is a two- or multi-way communication method grounded in active listening and mutual learning practices between different generations. Its overarching objective is to seek mutual understanding, break stereotypes, build trust, and bridge potential gaps and inequalities between generations. As we embark on our discussion, it's crucial to recognize that generational stereotypes and inequalities are not one-dimensional. While older generations often wield more power and influence, younger generations face their own challenges of disparities and stereotypes. Understanding these dynamics is essential for addressing inequality and fostering opportunity across all generations. It is also important to differentiate between the intergenerational dialogue and youth consultations. While both hold value, they serve very different purposes. Youth consultations seek input exclusively from young people, whereas an intergenerational dialogue like the one that we're going to have today involves individuals from various age groups collectively exchanging ideas and building understanding, as you can see from our panelists. The impact of technology and democracy, especially in youth engagement, cannot be overstated. Digital natives, today's youth, utilize technology as a powerful tool for political activism and civic participation. Platforms like social media have become critical arenas for youth-led movements and political discourse, empowering young voices on issues from climate change to social justice. However, the impact of technology on youth political participation extends beyond social media. Digital tools and platforms have enabled, in many cases, the access to information, enabling young people to educate themselves on political issues and participate in decision-making processes like it has never been done before. From online petitions to virtual town halls, technology has helped democratic processes, empowering young people to have a seat at the table. Yet, with the proliferation of technology also comes challenges, particularly concerning the spread of disinformation and misinformation. The rapid dissemination of false and misleading information online can undermine trust in democratic institutions and erode the foundations of democracy itself. Combating this requires innovative approaches and responsible use of technology to safeguard democratic principles. Moreover, youth-led initiatives leveraging technology from democratic innovation and social change have proliferated in recent years. From online voting platforms to digital advocacy campaigns, young people are driving positive democratic outcomes through innovative use of technology. These initiatives not only showcase the agency of youth in shaping the future of democracy, but also underscore the importance of cross-generational collaboration in shaping inclusive and responsive political systems. Conflicting generational differences and gaps are widespread in our lives and can lead to communication breakdowns and misunderstandings. But it is essential to acknowledge that each generation plays a role in shaping social norms and cultural values, often catalyzing progress, but also triggering resistance from older generations. Today's dialogue is structured around key themes, including youth engagement with technology, innovative approaches to combat disinformation, and lessons from youth-led initiatives. Through focused discussions, we aim to explore the challenges and the opportunities presented by the evolving relationship between youth, technology, and democracy. So our goal today is not to understand the complexities of this intersection, but to identify some actionable solutions and foster collaboration across generational divides. I encourage all participants to engage actively and contribute to meaningful dialogue that can drive positive democratic outcomes. And before we start introducing the panel, I would like to introduce a little teaser from an advocacy campaign that we are preparing at the Global Democracy Coalition. Thank you. It's a very pre-teaser, just 12 seconds, but the advocacy campaign is coming, and we're very, very happy at the Global Democracy Coalition that this is happening and that this is happening soon. But let's start our conversation today, and let me introduce you to our amazing panelists. So we will start with Elisaveta Volkova. She is a human rights advocate and a youth activist from Russia, now living in the United States. She is the founder and program director of the Youth Liberty Congress, that is the youth branch of the World Liberty Congress, the largest global movement of pro-democracy leaders representing activists from 60 authoritarian countries. We also have David Tran at the other end of the table. He serves as the Director of Communications for the Unified Buddhist Church of Vietnam and heads the Office of External Affairs. He has been active in the community services for the last 40 years. David is the National Facilitator for the Asian and Pacific Islander Institute of Department of Health and Human Services. He is a practicing child and adolescent psychiatrist since 1995, before Elisaveta was actually born. David graduated from the University of Texas Medical Branch in Galveston and summa cum laude from Texas Lutheran University. He is recipient of several awards, and currently he is the coordinator of the Alliance for Vietnam's Democracy, and David also serves as the steering committee of the Global Democracy Coalition. And then we have Samuel here. Samuel Kayiwa. He's a seasoned advocate passionate about the intersection of environmental protection and human rights. Formerly a dedicated environmental and human rights journalist, Samuel currently works as a project officer for Students for Global Democracy Uganda, focusing on human rights and civic space initiatives. He holds a bachelor degree in journalism from Makerere University in Uganda and another bachelor's of science degree in health sciences from the University of the People at the USA. He also has several certificates, for example, in monitoring, evaluation, accountability, and learning in emergencies from the Humanitarian Leadership Academy, and a certificate in communication for development from UNICEF. He is a founding member of the Human Rights Network Journalists, Water and Environment Media Network Uganda, and Uganda Journalists Association. He has over 17 years experience of working as a journalist and news editor for both broadcast and print media in Uganda and abroad. And finally, we have Tai Jung-Panik. She is the director of strategic partners at Political Watch. Her passion is to support and empower civil society organizations, activists, and journalists working on citizen participation, human rights, racial justice, and digital rights around the world, but also she wants to engage with relevant stakeholders on policy issues related to artificial intelligence, citizen participation, and social justice. She has a strong background in community organizing, policy research and analysis, strategic design, and collaborative culture. She's passionate about building communities, network, and cross-cutting movement for reshaping a better future for all. So this is our amazing intergenerational panel. We will not ask ages, but let's start with the conversation. So let's start with Samuel. How can we ensure that technology is accessible and inclusive for all youth, especially those from marginalized communities, for example, in your country?
Thank you so much, Elisenda. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. and my fellow panelists. Like Elisenda said, my name is Samuel Kayua from Uganda. I prepared a simple statement. And Sub-Saharan Africa boasts a rapidly growing youth population. However, the digital divide excludes many young people, especially those from marginalized communities, from the immense educational and economic opportunities technology offers. Now, before I talk about how we can, bridge the digital divide, I would like to first talk about the challenges affecting young people's access to technology, especially in Sub-Saharan Africa. Some of these challenges include the challenge of infrastructure gap, where there is limited access to reliable electricity and internet connectivity, particularly in rural areas. We still have issues of affordability. The high costs of devices and data plans remain a significant barrier to many young people accessing, being included in the digital world. We still have the digital literacy gap, lack of training and education on how to use technology effectively, and this remains a very big challenge as well. We have the language barrier, where content and interfaces are unavailable in local languages, and this has, it affects many young people from accessing technology. And we also lack assistive technologies where there is limited access to tools for youth with disabilities. Now, to answer your question, these are some of the solutions that I suggested, which I think that can help us try to decrease that digital divide. One, we need to have infrastructure development and public-private partnerships. I believe governments, especially in the Sub-Saharan Africa, should encourage private companies to invest in expanding internet coverage, especially in underserved areas, through tax breaks and the subsidies to some of these companies. In doing so, this will help many companies penetrate the areas that are previously, underserved, and in turn, it will help many young people access technology. Two, unlike some of you people in the West, I was yesterday when I was taking a walk around some streets around Seoul. You would reach somewhere and you find free Wi-Fi. Now, for us, that's a privilege. You can't find it in Sub-Saharan, many countries in Sub-Saharan Africa. So I think governments should establish community Wi-Fi hotspots powered by renewable energy sources in rural areas. We might be having our own challenges, but you're also blessed in a way. Right now, as I talk, Uganda receives good weather throughout the whole year. Right now, I can't dress like this in Uganda this time. It's too hot. And if you've been following news, I believe you've also read somewhere that schools in southern Sudan, which is a neighbor to Uganda, they have been closed because of the excessive heat. So we have the sun in abundance. So if we can have, some technology that runs on, if we can have community Wi-Fi's that can run on renewable energy in Africa, in some of these countries, it will also help a lot because we don't lack the sun. We have all the sun that we need. Then accessibility standards and regulations. We need to advocate, especially as civil society organizations, for the implementation of accessibility standards and regulations to ensure technology development caters for a diverse user base. We also need to look at issues of affordability, subsidized devices and data packages, especially this is on the side of most of our governments, where they need to partner with mobile network operators to offer subsidized devices and and data plans, specifically for students and youth from low-income backgrounds. Then you also need to integrate digital literacy training programs into existing educational curriculums, equipping youth with skills to navigate the digital world safely and effectively. We need also to, our governments need to, and other partners need to fund initiatives that support the development of education and entertainment content in local languages. Most of the programs we get are in English, and yet not all our communities are well conversant with the English language. So it is it's prudent for governments and other partners to see that our people can access information in their local languages. Then you also need to work with tech companies to ensure their platforms and interfaces are available in widely spoken languages. And also we need to advocate for technology developers to prioritize and integrate accessibility features into their products from the outset. We also need to organize workshops and training sessions in rural communities that are aimed at bridging the digital divide. I also believe that we need to connect young people from marginalized groups with tech professionals for guidance. These are, in form of mentorship programs. We need to design those mentorship programs where these people can be able to learn from people who are already there. We also need to implement targeted programs specifically focusing on training and empowering girls in information and communication technology skills, because previously areas of technological areas, they have been looked at as spaces for boys, and in most cases young girls are left out. So we need to have programs that are targeting these young girls. I talked about the peer-to-peer learning. These days, you will agree with me that majority of people who are in the tech space, young people are taking it up at a very high rate. So we need to connect young people from these marginalized groups with young people who are already, who are tech savvy, and then they mentor them in one way or another. I believe for us to effectively understand and achieve our objectives, we need to put in place monitoring and evaluation mechanisms to follow up on some of the initiatives that we put in place. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Samuel. Very, very interesting, all that you are sharing with us. And this is something that we will delve a little bit more in the next question. But I think that all the things that you have been mentioning have resonated with many of the sessions that we had today, but also with the sessions that we had yesterday during the first day of the summit. But we will explore that a little bit more in the next question. But thank you so much, Samuel. I'm going to go with Lisa. You have been working a lot as an activist. You have been trying to engage with different governments. You have been trying to bring a voice to the youth, even in spaces where they are supposed to have voices that have also been a little bit closed. And you don't know her, but I have had the honor to know her and to know her work. And she pushes until she actually makes things work. You should be very, very proud of yourself about that. But I want to hear, how, with all the experience that you have had, even you are so young, but as I said, you have a lot of work behind you already. How can governments and civil society organizations support youth-led initiatives aimed at promoting democratic values and especially participation?
Can you hear me? Okay. First of all, thank you so much for all the words that you said. And I will use this platform to serve as someone coming from a dictatorship and working with youth leading the fight against authoritarianism around the world. I think one of the most important things that I can say from my personal experience is do not give up on young people from dictatorships. No one chooses to be born under Putin, Maduro, or Kim Jong-un. Do not give up on the young people from inside the countries with authoritarian regimes. Do not cross them out just because of the color of their passports. This only helps dictators. They absolutely dream of having the youth be trapped inside those countries and use propaganda, brainwashing techniques to promote their narratives and agendas. I think, answering your question, democratic countries and actors have power to facilitate this possible window of opportunity for the transition of the regime in the future. We must act today and engage with opposition movements, civil society representatives, and recognize them as legitimate representatives of their countries, and not the tyrants that oppress their own people and stole their countries from their citizens. Every time I get asked to describe the work of World Liberty Congress and Youth Liberty Congress, I always say that we are the first organization that is creating a United Nations for real leaders of the countries under the authoritarian regimes. The real United Nations has been nothing but a platform for uniting and enabling dictators. Appointing Iran as a chair of Human Rights Commission, what are we doing? This is hypocrisy, right? So my advice is simple: stop talking and recognizing dictators. Start working and recognizing young people who also deserve to be a part of the international community. If someone told me 2 years ago that I can have this platform and talk about my personal experience, I would not believe it, because when you are inside the dictatorship, you don't think that there is a way out, first of all, and second of all, you don't know if people from democracies will actually accept you and hear your voice. So I think this is crucial for us to continue to bring students, young people from China, from Venezuela, from Russia, from Iran, to give them the opportunity to be a part of the international community, because we cannot think that we can free those countries without engaging with actual young people who are on the ground. And this is what the Youth Liberty Congress has been focusing on. We are uniting young people inside the dictatorships and trying to give them the platform to be able to come to these events. We brought a delegation here, our two beautiful and amazing activists from Tibet and from Cambodia. So I think this is my biggest conclusion from everything that I have done in the last 2 years, is do not give up on the people from inside those countries. We have to facilitate this transition. We have to keep in touch with them. We have to give them the window of opportunity. We have to be their support system, because they're the ones who are actually the front lines fighters against those dictators. And we have to act as their second defense system. Yes, thank you.
Thank you so much for your inspiring words, Lisa. And I think that you're correct. It's not just about not giving up on the young people that live in authoritarian regimes, because as you said, they didn't choose to be born there, but also serving as an example that there is a way out. Because you were saying, like, sometimes you think there is no way out, but people like you are the ones that serve as an example that there is a way out. So keep up the good work. Tai, how can the intergenerational dialogue bridge the gap between older and younger generations in understanding and addressing the digital challenges that democracy faces?
Thank you for inviting me to be here with you and to share this panel with my co-panelists. And thank you, Lisa, for your passion. I really like to have you with us, and contagious, no? Your energy too. So before I start my intervention, I want to explain just I'm coming from Political Watch. It's a think and do tank based in Spain, and we develop civic technology for better societies, democratic and fair and sustainable societies. And before I start with the intervention, I would like to make a disclaimer, because I live in a city close to Barcelona, in Spain, So I see the world with my privilege and my biases, according to the region that I live, no, in Europe. So I will have all these visions according to where I am. I think it's really fair to recognize this. So having said that, I would like to start with a reflection, no? Because although there are still so many places in the world that they don't have access or they don't have connectivity, I think we all agree that this period of time it's the most connected societies that we have ever have. But at the same time, we're starting to see that we are starting to feel so isolated, and we are thinking that we are losing human connections. And one of the results is the rising of mental illness, no? Especially among young and elderly people. So, and when we talk about democracies, we talk about sharing visions of the societies, understanding the challenges that we face and agreeing on the rules that we want our societies to work with. So it's healthy democracies embrace diversity and provide spaces for people to discuss about the different visions and the different opinions that they have and the priorities that they also have in their own lives. No? And because there are not more important issues than others, but different ways of looking at the problems. For older people, maybe pension and health systems are the priorities, but maybe for young people, it's going to be employment, housing, or climate change. So, and in terms of technology, there are a number of challenges that affect all societies. But it's true that there are some group of populations that are much more affected, no? They feel, because they are more excluded. And for example, it's like, how does the digitalization of public administration affect the elderly? How old people is engaging with digital tools for citizens' participation now that the governments are using more and more digital tools for consultations, for participating, for being present in online debates, no? And it's also about how they feel. Sometimes the old people think or start to feel that democracies are not going to work. They are not working because they feel excluded in this kind of digital spaces, no? But it's also true that some young people, at the same, they're going to start feel excluded from some spaces that are designed for the boomers, no? For the old people, no? Design the spaces for the world that they think there is, but it's changing. So we need to break to challenge the myth that the young people doesn't want to get engaged in politics, but it's not true. It's more that we need to find the places to engage them, to appeal them, to reach to them, to have to communicate in a way that they can feel that they can be in that place, and that their voices and their opinions are going to be heard, that they are not only going to be present in the room, that it's true they're going to be listened to them. So, and creating spaces for people of different ages to exchange ideas, it's a very powerful tool. But the other thing is about discussing about democratic issues. It's not something that the people are waiting for. So if we want to create the kind of spaces, we need to start talking about the issues and the topics that the people are caring about. For example, in rural areas there is a problem with the connectivity and how digitalization it's implemented. For example, for older people, it's going to be a problem because, for example, some banks they don't want to have like cash machines or ATMs because they don't think it's worth it, because they are thinking only on the profit. But maybe it's a problem for the old people. But then young people cannot stay in their villages because of the poor connection, so they cannot do the remote work. So maybe we can create these spaces where they can be together with the policymakers, with the public administration officers, with business and other people, to understand the different views and try to agree to find some solutions with them. And this is it's a concrete example. And then when you have these people together, we can start building bridges among different people, no? And starting to create these connections. Okay. I don't know, I have lost my, okay, here. Whoops, sorry. Oops, I lost everything. So maybe to finish my intervention, yes, and there are not so many places for interregional dialogue. So maybe we need to start creating them. So to work how to embrace all these voices, no? And we underestimate the power of social family connections or just social connections. The household it's a good place for these intergenerational collaborations. And another place that we can think it's libraries, because most of the users of the libraries are old and young people. So maybe we can start thinking about how we can use these spaces, no? Because what we need to think about is how to take the values and practices of democracy where the people are. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Tai. I think that your points are very valuable, and I think you're right when you say that we need to create more spaces, and I think that it's very valuable that you are saying this in this space that was created for civil society. I think that we have to commend the government of South Korea for actually giving civil society a full day during the during the third summit for democracy, because it's very important to have the voices of civil society heard, and they are being heard more loud every time. So thank you for also bringing that up. David. Hi. David, what do you think are the potential risks and maybe unintended consequences of relying heavily on technology for political activism and civic engagement? What is your perspective as the older generation in this table? Let's say that when you were young...
I suspect that's why I was selected.
Yeah. No, you were not selected. You were not selected because of that. We have been working for almost 2 years together now, David. So I know that your inputs are always very, very valuable. But like this question, I chose it for you because when you were young, like you have been working as an activist for more than 40 years, and it has changed a lot.
Right.
When you started your activism, the use of technology was not as spread as today. I am guessing that you're seeing how new generations are using this technology for their own political activism and civic engagement. And I am very sure that you see benefits, but also risks and maybe consequences, as the question states. So I would really like to know, what do you think about this?
I think, like Tai was saying, I think that we need to create those space, the civic space. But whether we like it or not, a lot of those spaces are online. And now, or soon, it will be metaverse and AI and all these technologies. I think that our children, the generation, they will see a lot more technological advances than even we do, and at faster speed. But at the same time, when you create these spaces, you have to make sure the spaces are safe. I think that regardless of what kind of conversation you have, that conversation need to be secure for the protection of the conversants, of the people who having the conversation. So while technology can enhance the civic engagement, it's crucial, like you say, that's to recognize risk involved and how to mitigate those risks. And these are some of the very basic risks that of any type of space, the misinformation and disinformation that we see now, the proliferation of false news and on the internet, and it can undermine the informed decision and lead to misguided political activism. Sadly, a lot of the misinformation and disinformation in places like Vietnam and China are also coming from the government itself. So the citizens are or can be misled and result in very ineffective or harmful activism. And then you can see the distrust in the political processes. And people, when they over-rely on technology, it can erode the trust in the political system. So the consequences would be reduced participation in elections, reduced participation in protests and other civic activities. In places like Vietnam, there's tens of thousands of people that are hired by the government to become opinions influencers. So they would go online, they would attack the activists, or they would give misinformation. So the online platform can be breeding grounds for harassment, hate speech, and cyber bullies. So it tend to discourage people from the political discussions. In many places, the digital space are the Facebook and YouTube and TikToks, and these spaces are also being controlled in some spaces by the governments themselves. In Vietnam, for example, you see that the government there is making an effort to pressure Facebook to move their server inside the country. So now the authorities there can control the data of the users, and that is can become, well, it is a risk to the safety of the users. So inadvertently, it leads to self-censorship, and people are reluctant to express dissenting opinions because they know that if anything that say that mildly critical of the authorities can lead them, can lead to the long sentences in prison. And you see people with 10, 12 years of prison sentences for making critical remarks of the government. So it's a dangerous space, and saying that not to say that it shouldn't be a place where better government or better rules and regulations shouldn't be in place to make sure that people are safe. But at the same time, you have to recognize, like I started out saying, there's a lot of risk and unintended consequences that you have to be careful.
Thank you, David. And your words are very wise. And I think that you're also speaking from a perspective from a person that comes from an authoritarian regime, and that you see every day what is happening there with this, the use of technology. You're talking about like the self-censorship that people have in authoritarian regimes is not something that we see in democracies, and the fact that the governments are trying to control these spaces is very dangerous. But this, we will talk a little bit more in the next question for you, David. So I want to go, and we still have some time. I'm going to go again with some questions, and let's start. So Samuel, you were talking about accessibility standards and regulation. You were talking about affordability, but one of the things that was very interesting was the literacy programs that you were mentioning, how to navigate the digital world safely, how to bring them in local languages and not just in English, how it was important to have workshops and training sessions, but also connect people from marginalized groups to either tech companies or people that are already like tech savvy, for them to use these spaces safely. And you also mentioned about how in sub-Saharan Africa, girls are normally left out of these workshops, these trainings, or like even this space, and how we need like to target programs to this. And I am elaborating on your answer from the previous question because it relates to the answer that I'm going to ask you. So you spoke about all this, but what do you think are the most effective methods for educating young people about digital literacy and critical thinking to navigate online spaces responsibly?
Thank you once again, Elisenda, for that question. There are quite a number of methods I believe that we can, young people can use to, to educate themselves about digital literacy and critical thinking to navigate online spaces responsibly. One of them is peer-to-peer workshops. I know I talked about that. Organizing, workshops where tech-savvy youth mentor and train their fellow youth in digital skills. This will help in fostering knowledge skills among these young people and also sharing and building confidence in these young people. We also need to create, I know my fellow panelists talked about it, creating online discussion forums. These digital spaces for young people where they can meet, and discuss challenges they face online and how they can overcome them and also share experiences. The other method I thought about is, when we talk about young people, we sometimes tend to forget their parents. I think there's a need to bring parents into the discussion. We need to organize workshops for parents on how they can talk to their children about especially online safety, because most of these young people are exposed to all dangers of online, challenges. How they can responsibly use social media as young people, and also recognizing the potential online dangers. So sometimes I believe that parents, they have a big role to play, in also helping young people navigate the online space. So if every time we leave them out, we are creating a vacuum as well. So if we only focus on young people, and we leave out the parents, sometimes, parents don't know what these young people are doing. And also, I know she talked about it, but also I want to emphasize it, having community outreach programs where we partner with libraries. I know where I come from, the issue of community centers and youth organizations and centers is very common. So if we can partner with these, platforms to offer digital literacy workshops and resources, it will help a lot. I think also to make digital literacy, fun and engaging, because if you speak a language that young people don't understand, they're going to shy away. So you make it engaging, it's bring in some incentives that can bring young people on board, why make them feel that there is a reason why they should be part of this, of this engagement. I think that's all. Maybe also, also creating digital portfolios, where we encourage students to create digital portfolios showcasing their digital citizenship skills. responsible online behavior, and responsible use of technology for learning and creativity.
Thank you so much, Samuel, because these are very to-the-point examples of what can be done. And I am thinking, because of all the conversations that we have been having last week with the Global Democracy Coalition Forum that took place in all the regions, and then we had the global one here on Friday, we have been seeing how in the different regions there are similarities on the challenges, but there are also a lot of lessons learned from the different experiences and perspectives of each one of the regions. So maybe things that you're mentioning today that could work in Africa are things that maybe will work here in Asia or even in Latin America, and that having these spaces and these dialogues are very helpful. I completely agree with you when it comes to the parents on how to talk to their kids about how to responsibly use social media. Sometimes I think that they can be a little bit lost in the sense that technology, as David was mentioning, is advancing so fast that people like Lisa can react very quickly, and then you maybe don't react as quickly, and then Ty and I will have some challenges. And David, I am very sure that you're super technology savvy. But it's very important to understand and to recognize that there is a divide, a generational divide when it comes to technology, and that older generations are more scared of using technology than younger generations for many reasons. So thank you so much, Samuel, for being so to the point and giving such very useful examples. Lisa, traditional media, it's not something that, I guess that's not something that you're super used to, but let's talk a little bit about it and how you, as the younger generation of the panel, view it. Like, what role do you think traditional media and new media platforms play in shaping youth perceptions on democracy and political engagement?
Yes, thank you so much for the question. Thank you so much for the question. I think young people are definitely really tech savvy, but we appreciate your guys' experiences, and it's amazing to learn from you. But also I think that facilitating the knowledge sharing, it's extremely important. What you mentioned about peer-to-peer learning in a global scale, I think it's also a very important technique that we should be implementing more. We should be talking to young people from different parts of the world in order to know and understand what they've been using and what works for them, because maybe it will work for us. Young people use technology and social media in an extremely innovative way, and I don't think we pay enough attention and learn from them. Young people in Belarus use Telegram to coordinate protests. Young people in Russia learned about Putin's regime from YouTube videos that were created by, for example, Alexei Navalny. He exposed corruption of Russian oligarchs. And I think engaging young people, as a young person myself, when I engage with young people from all over the world, from 60 autocratic regimes, with activists from 60 autocratic regimes that we work with, I get inspired and so motivated, because every time I hear a completely different example of how these groups implemented, the technology and social media in order to fight against dictatorships. For example, one of our groups that we have been working with, they started in Russia, they started mapping young people who were against Putin and against the war by checking their followers, which opposition groups or which social media outlets they were following online, in order to understand if they were the safe bet to invite them to join the like-minded group of people who are resisting against the war and dictatorship, which is really hard to do in a very censored environment. And also, I think what has not been yet mentioned here, but you talked about self-censorship, is also how dictators are censoring the social media that we use in the Western world. For example, Instagram, YouTube, and so on. We cannot reach the audience via Instagram in China. We cannot reach audience via Instagram in Russia, because Putin and Xi Jinping has have shut down this platform because they understand that there is a lot of freedom of speech that the people can exercise on this platform. So I think one of our main goals for this year as a Youth Liberty Congress, we're trying to do research and understand how we can bridge the wall that dictators have created between the young people and how we can reach them using new social media or even the social media that is state-owned in those countries, and if there is a way for us to counter propaganda even in those platforms, which is super hard to do from the outside perspective. So yes, answering your question, I think there is a lot of things that we can learn from young people from inside the dictatorships too, because they have been actually innovating the use of social media in a lot of ways. So yeah, but it's definitely super interesting and also inspiring to learn how democratic governments and how democratic governments actually engage with young people. I know that in the United States, U.S. government loves to engage young people on TikTok, and I think this is a great idea to actually foster the political participation of young people who do not understand sometimes the language of older generations, as you said. Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. Yeah, because this is the two-way street. It's not like that we don't understand you, young generation. It's like you also don't understand us sometimes, and we have to talk, and we have to communicate. So, thank you so much for your examples, and I think that it's really interesting what you're saying, and it also makes me think a lot of how social media started playing a role in these movements that you were talking about. For example, we saw it in the Arab Spring in 2011. We saw how, for example, in Egypt, they were organizing through Facebook, that then Facebook now it's not like the platform. We're talking about like now TikTok, that maybe in that time was not even a thing. But they used Facebook, they used X, that was Twitter at the time, to organize themselves. Of course, the lessons from the Arab Spring are tough and sad. But there are lessons to be learned in the sense that, for example, in those times, these movements lacked of a specific leadership. So sometimes when you wanted to talk to someone, or if the government was opening up, which in most cases were not, that wanted to talk to someone, there was always this part of, and who's the leader? Who should I sit with? Like, this is a huge movement. Where are we heading? You know, like, where are we going? So thank you for the examples. You made me think about this. We still have some time, so I'll go with Tai. Tai, as she said, works with Political Watch, and she is the director of partnerships. And there's a partnership question for you. How can international collaboration and partnership support the exchange of best practices in using technology for democratic governance?
Thank you again. Okay, maybe it's, I'm going to say something that everyone is going to be agreed, but defending and promoting democracy is a big challenge that needs a collective effort. And we need somehow unify and shared commitment to defend and promote our democracies. That's why international collaborations and partnerships are essential for this collective effort. And when I say unity, I'm not talking about uniform and homogeneous democracies, because we live in different countries with different contexts. And we need to embrace this diversity of our democracies that enrich the discourse on democratic governance. No? And that's why it's so important to have this and to create these spaces where different people can exchange views of the projects that they are running, the views, the priorities, their ideas. No? And even sometimes it's really difficult to agree on concrete results or concrete actions or next steps, like in this kind of events. If you are really in an active listen mode, I think it's worth it. It's worth it to listen to others. I think it's something really basic, and it's more difficult than it seems. And the other thing about sharing good or best practices, I will say that everyone likes to share successful projects. But we need to start sharing our failures too, because we can learn much more from where we fail than where we are success. So sharing failures is also a good practice. So I encourage you and to all of us to start doing more of this. No? And when we talk about collaboration and create these international spaces, we also need to have an interdisciplinary approach, no? And it's even more important when we talk about tech and technology, no? Because we need to embrace critical thinking on technology, because otherwise we can start thinking, oh, we can be like techno-optimists, no? That the things that technology is going to save us, and technology is going to save our democracy and so on, and it's not, because the main problem that we have, it's a political problem where tech is playing a crucial role. It's true, but it's like I always say don't lose the goal. No, the goal is to improve our democracy. The goal is not tech. Tech it's a mean that can help us to achieve this goal. No, so tech it also can of course it can improve our processes and reshape our thinking, no? How we are thinking about the democracy so far. And because it can improve, for example, AI can improve deliberative processes. It can process information faster. AI can help politicians to make better decisions. It can help in so many ways, but we need to keep we need to have a human rights approach, because tech it's not neutral. So, and we have seen so many examples of AI being racist and being sexist. So we need to be aware of what technology we are using, and if it's aligned with our values, no? Because we need to have like a coherence of our practices, of our democratic practices, no? So I will say, and maybe it's a little bit controversial, but I will say that tech experts cannot lead the conversation on democratic innovation. And maybe I'm aware that I'm oversimplifying things. I work on an organization that develops civic tech. My background is engineer, so I love technology and I like to use it, but it's always that now it's the hype of AI, no? And it's true, we need to pay attention on this, but thinking always that it's a tool. It's not the driver to achieve democratic innovation. And this brings me to a point that I always try to share when I talk about this kind of issues. It's about how we are going to break these democratic experts' bubbles, no? How we are going to democratize the spaces where we are discussing about the democratic innovation with or without tech. And it's like, because it's important to talk and to discuss about the what and the hows, but it's also really, really important and to pay a lot of attention about who is in the room. Today, not too many people, but maybe online there are more people. But it's like about who is discussing about these issues, and also who is not in the discussions. No? And maybe we need to start to think and to open the spaces for tech and for democratic experts, but also for other people like labor rights, feminists, anti-racist groups. So different visions of the democracies, no? And then maybe we can start testing new ideas, because we need new ideas and new ways of developing all these technologies at the same time. No? So, for example, being an open our minds, we can start thinking, could we think what will happen if the driver of AI development will be improving our democracy instead of for profit? Can we think about that? And it's not a conversation about tech and democracy, but it's not about only them. Because, for example, if we include labor rights and employment and so on, we could start thinking, okay, maybe AI could help us to work less. And if we spend less hours working, maybe we are going to have more time to decide on where to use it. And maybe we have time to dedicate to our communities, to our schools, to participate more in our democracy. So maybe we can reshape the conversations that we're having on tech and democracy. And it could happen if we bring more voices to the debates. And maybe another example that it can be, it's super, I think it's important to visualize. It's the human connections that we get when we are with other people in person. It's always much better, but it can be also online. And it's super important, especially for people who are working in context of war, human rights abuse, and closed societies. So it's super important to pay attention to. No? And maybe before I finish my intervention, let me share 2 positive examples of international collaboration about tech and democracy in different levels. No? The first one is the CIDIM community. The CIDIM is a free open source platform for citizens' participation made by people for the people. It was supported from the Barcelona City Council 7 years ago, and now it's an international reference. And it's implemented and developed in more than 30 countries and in cities like New York, Helsinki, or Milan, no? They are using. It's a community of people that are caring about tech, democracy, and social justice. And maybe another network is Code for All. So it's another network that is working on all these issues too. So maybe we need to create and to facilitate maybe new collaborations and partnerships, but maybe we can start supporting the ones that we already have and are doing a great job. And I would like to end with a positive message to all of you and for me too, because the future has not been yet written. So we need to support each other, and we can work together to collectively embrace joy and hope, because hope is the most powerful driver for social and political change. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Tai. I think that your ending was powerful. Hope is important. I was thinking during your intervention, I was connecting it to your previous intervention, and that you were saying like to create these spaces and that it is important, and like international organizations and partnerships are essential, and that we have to create these spaces even if it's difficult, to share failures also as good practices. That is very difficult because you're kind of acknowledging the mistakes that you did. But one of the things that came continuously to my mind is what you were saying in the beginning of your first intervention. We have never been so connected, but at the same time, we are getting more isolated than ever. So we need to create these spaces, maybe not online, to discuss the online sphere, just to be in person and be able to create these different ties that technology is not allowing us to have. So yeah, thank you for making us think about that. And my dear David, last but not least, we were talking in your last intervention about the governments trying to control these spaces, how self-censorship in authoritarian regimes was something that was usual, that online platforms can actually be used for harassment and tend to send people a little back. In this, we don't see just in autocracies, we also see this in democracies, right. The harassment, we also see it. But do you have any ideas of how can we ensure that digital tools and platforms remain resilient against the manipulation and exploitation by malicious actors? You were mentioning the Vietnam example.
Yeah, let me start by having this plug that I think that part of the resilience is also the sharing of practices, best practices, and I think one platform for that sharing of practices is the Global Democracy Coalition, because without that, I think the sharing of practices would be more difficult. We wouldn't have this conversation here today. So I think to have a forum like that, I think it helps with the conversation that we have across regions, across countries. But on a smaller scale, I think when you're talking about resilience on a level of a CSO of an organization, something that a lot of organizations don't have is a security plan, an online security plan. Because a lot of the technology right now, I mean, requires the strong encryption, requires that the data that's stored and transmitted on a platform can avoid the unauthorized access. And then you also have to, when you have a security plan, you also have to talk about having regular audits of that security. so that your organization, your CSO, can stay safe. And then things that we don't usually like the authentication and verification of data or of users, and the transparency of the guidelines, so that people know how you use the content moderation, the data uses, the privacy that's on your security plan, and also educating the users on the media literacy, about fake news, about disinformation, about phishing attempts, things like that. And when we talk about things like YouTube or Facebook, we also have to talk about algorithm and what kind of algorithm these social media are using to block out information that's pro-democracy or pro-human rights. And these are serious discussions that need to happen on a larger level, where legislation and laws that can be passed to make sure that these platforms, like I was discussing, accountable for these type of suppression. And also, there's also technology that's available to help protect the activists and civil organizations. The Alliance for Vietnam's Democracy, in the last couple of years, we have a project to buy VPN accounts here in the United States and sending it home to Vietnam or to other parts of the world where people don't have they don't have free internet. So I think a lot of that requires a lot of collaboration on a larger scale. But at the same time, you also realize that no system is entirely safe or entirely immune from manipulation. But you have to start from somewhere. And if I could go back to in the context of authoritarianism, what we are doing here right now, we're trying to engage youth and trying to talk about technology. The authoritarian system, governments, authorities, they started this a long time ago. They have policies of how to engage youth for their purposes. They have policies of how to using technology to their benefits. And all of this has been happening a long time. We are way behind the curve. So sorry I couldn't come up with a positive note to end, but let me end with that and I'll give it back to you. Yes, they have resources, right?
Thank you so much, David. There are two things that caught many things that caught my attention actually from your intervention. Thank you for sharing it. What you're doing with the Alliance of Vietnam Democracy, trying to bring VPNs to Vietnam, it's something really interesting. And we've seen this not specifically with VPN, but with eSIMs. Mm-hmm. So there's this project in Egypt that is sending eSIMs to people in Gaza because they don't have connectivity. So they're using the connectivity from Egypt to be able to communicate out to the world. Many of the journalists have been using these eSIMs, and something that started like very little. It was about trying to communicate with a family member. It has evolved into something, I don't know how many eSIMs. I think that there's in the millions that they have been sharing with people that have been affected by this conflict. But these are very specific things that sometimes, as the youth says, go viral. And then they really start to have a positive impact on this. So amazing that you're doing with the VPNs, and I hope that it goes viral. and that you can help even more people. Second thing that caught my attention, we have been talking about tech, youth, and democracy for almost 2 weeks now at the Global Democracy Coalition, and not one time algorithms have come up. And they are so important because they are used in both, like in democracies and in authoritarian regimes. I am very sure that in authoritarian regimes, worse. But thank you for bringing it out, because I think that it's a conversation that needs to be had. And maybe, as Tai was saying, not with the tech people, but with the democracy people and the policy people. So I'm going to open up to if there are any questions from the audience. No? Do you have any questions between yourselves?
No question.
No question.
I just wanted to, identify with what David said. The campaign by authoritarian regimes to spread propaganda. I identify with what he said, that what is happening in Vietnam is the same thing that is also happening back home, where regime, apologists, they open up. You can find one person opening up like 20, Facebook pages under different names, 20 X pages under different names. So it's very common, and it's spreading, like wildfire. And I think these are some of the things that we need to, to address and see how we can counter, such, because these authoritarian regimes use them to spread their. Now, for example, in my country, the government has been under a lot of pressure for failing even to, work on the, social, things that, amenities that people need in their day-to-day lives. And they use these regime propagandists to, to bring one or two things that government has done, or constructed a road here and there. When government, a public, somebody from the government or the president is having a meeting and there are no people present, then they manipulate the numbers, to show that there are many people there, not to shame the president. So it's a very, very big problem, and I really, I understand when he talks about it.
Thank you so much, Samuel. It has been a true pleasure, this panel. It has been extremely insightful. It will bring a lot of recommendations to the report that we will be doing with the Global Democracy Coalition. Thank you really so much for being here. Thank you for sharing all these insights that maybe you don't even think that they will turn into recommendations, but they will, because they are really great. So thank you so much once again. Thank you to the audience that came. Thank you to those that are connected online, or if you're watching it any other day that after this has happened. Thank you so much. Cheers for Seoul. And yeah, we will keep going. Thank you.